I bought the Disco Crush Eyeshadows from Too Faced Cosmetics for science, of course. If you've been on my channel, you know I love me some sparkle. I love shimmer shadows. I love trying out different formulas, and I like to have them for comparisons and for reference. So that's really why I got these, and I got all of them during their Black Friday sales. So I paid $18.80 for each of them. There was one shade that was sold out on the Too Faced website, so I got it on Ulta for 20% off. So I got that one for a little less sale, and I think that was the shade Mystic Pink. And I was really curious about the texture of these because I felt like the way they were describing them was that these were kind of glittery, and I was really afraid that they were going to be like actual glitter. At full price, these are $30, and you're getting 1.5 grams of product, which is less than the Urban Decay Muda Shadow. So first I'm going to show you a couple of textural reference comparisons to some other mainstream shadows out there, as well as one indie, and then I will show you eye swatches of all the shades, and then of course some of my thoughts at the end of the video. So let's get right into it. For texture comparisons, I tried to choose shades that are kind of similar in terms of color. So this is Magic Sprinkles, this is Moira Sugar Crush, this is Wild Dipper, Elf Finest Fleck Champagne Showers. Here's the textural difference. I think you can tell that the Elf shade is definitely, it's more powdery and just a lot less shiny and sparkly. So Diamond Dust, Moira. Obviously it is more opaque, and they all are very smooth. Here's Urban Decay, and here is Elf. I'm going to add one more layer to the Elf shade. The Too Faced shadow is so sparkly, especially you can see it when it goes out of focus on an angle. And then here's a close-up just for textural reference again, not necessarily shade. And you can see this one just is much more subtle. In terms of particle size is a bit different. The Urban Decay Muda Shadow sparkles sit on top of the base, and they're not very uniform across the shade. Adding two more swatches. Here's Patrick Ta We Need Better Lighting, the bottom shade, and this shade is from Glam Cosmetics, and it is Elegance. And I will be swatching the Diamond Dust shadow down below it, just so that we have it for reference here for the sparkle, because it was all the way at the top. I think sparkle-wise, these are definitely very much on par. I think the texture between Patrick Ta and the Diamond Dust shade is very different. And even in the pan, they look quite a bit different. The Glam Cosmetics shade is obviously more opaque, but besides that, I think the sparkle matches pretty well. It's very sparkly. And it's very even sparkle. Okay, I just discovered this. I was looking through my palettes and I pulled this out and I was like, wait a minute, these shadows from the Pat McGrath Moonlit palette look so similar in texture, and this white shade looks almost identical as well. And then this one, I think there's a slight difference between these two. This one is a little bit lighter. So let's take a look at a textural comparison. Too Faced Hypnotic, the shade from Pat McGrath, Fairy Dust from Too Faced, and this is Pat McGrath. Obviously, color-wise, these two are a little bit different, but I think texture-wise, especially between these two white shades, they feel to the touch pretty much the same. I can't really tell a difference between them when I was swatching them. So I'm really curious to see. Oh yeah, they feel, even like swatching them out, they feel very similar. They just have like this silkiness to them. It's just so crazy. I'm going to add one more layer to the Pat McGrath swatch. So again, there's a difference color-wise even between the two white shades now that they're swatched out. But I think texture-wise and like level of sparkle-wise, I wonder if these are almost like the same pigment. I was really trying to think of what would be the most similar in texture to these Too Faced shadows. And here we are, a Pat McGrath palette. I think this was either the first or second palette where they switched out the bake shades for these shades. So very interesting. I think if I was to wear these on the lid, the sparkle level would be the same. First to swatch is Fairy Dust, which is basically just like white sparkly shade. And I'm not gonna have any sort of eyeshadow primer down since I'm just going to be wiping these off. And this way you can get an idea on what these look like as like a one and done. Definitely very wet look kind finish, and I think especially like pressed into the skin, it really gives it that wet look. Next shade is Magic Sprinkles. This one's like almost like a rose gold basically. it is a little bit more opaque, but I think that if you pick this up very lightly and just kind of tapped it on, you could probably get a much more sheer wash. Very, very wet looking. And here it is with flash. And this side with flash. Super, super sparkly for sure. Hypnotic, which this one is pretty much like a light gold. I see just a little bit of some more silver flecks throughout it. This is how it picks up, and it's so smooth. And then this is what it looks like after I touch the pan. I'm not sure if it's going to translate. It feels very, very beautiful to the touch. I do think that there's just ever so slightly a tiny bit of a grittiness to them. Like just ever so slightly, and I think now that I wiped off my eyeshadow, I can feel it more. And then here's what my finger looks like after getting most of the shadow off. You can really see, if you go in with a really light hand all over the lid, this is going to give you kind of like your eyelid but wetter in like a really beautiful way. And I think this is another beautiful shade for sure. Definitely very, very gold. And I do find it interesting that when I look this way, it almost kind of disappears on the edge here. And then when I move this way, you can really see the sparkle again. Next shade is Show Off. This one looks like a blue-pink duochrome. Very, very excited for this one. And oh my gosh, they just feel so beautiful. They're not hard panning at all. They definitely have a piecier kind of formula where you can kind of feel the particle size a little bit. Maybe in this close-up you can kind of see there's just like a little bit of, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like the particles are totally different. I think these are very different from the Patrick Ta eyeshadows, and I do think these are quite different from the Urban Decay Muda shadows as well. So this is very much like a super subtle duochrome. I do see the pink for sure, and then I feel like I see the blue just kind of like randomly as the light reflects off of it. Really, really like the shade. I do feel like this one's even more topper-like than, for example, this one kind of does look a little bit more uniformly golden. So pretty. I would probably say I would recommend a tacky primer with these, but I feel like there is potential for fallout because of the particle size being like almost like a glitter, but not fully like a glitter particle size, but just really, really sparkly. I mean, that is just magical. Next shade is Mystic Pink. Also looks like a duochrome. I unfortunately dropped this one and it did break a little bit, but I was able to just kind of push it around in there. So it's definitely interesting because I feel like the way that it broke kind of speaks a little bit to the texture of this and the formulation of these. And again, like just so beautiful. I hate that I love these as much as I do. Like I really wish I could say. I kind of thought when I first was looking at them, and the reason I waited so long to try one, which I ended up getting all of them for science, but I was very hesitant because I thought that these were going to be glitter, like straight up the typical glitter particles, kind of like the way that ColourPop does it, but I don't feel like these are like that at all. They have the glittery wet look without actually being like the glitter particles themselves. This is a beautiful duochrome. I mean, this shade is a one and done. Stunning. See the pink base with the kind of orangey, light yellow almost reflect to it. So pretty. And again, I feel like because of the lighting, it kind of like, I think you can see the orange like straight on here where the light is hitting it, but on the side you can really see the pink, and I really like that. And then the last shade is Heart Eyes. This one also looks like a duochrome. I can definitely see, yep, that shift in there. It's almost kind of like the reverse of this one, but I think the pink is a little bit more, yeah, it's a little bit more like a peachy pink, I think, or I'll have to see. That's why I wanted to swatch these kind of next to each other. And I do gotta say this one's definitely quite opaque. But I mean, look at that. And this is like going in. And again, this is the way it looks on my finger. Like this is why I think that if you took just a little bit of this and you really tapped it into your skin, so next level. And I think I'm going to do a look like that because I definitely think a little bit goes a long way. I think these are really most likely kind of meant to be used in a tapping ethereal kind of look, kind of swept over the lid versus like a really heavy application. But you could definitely use them that way as well. But if you do, definitely recommend a tacky primer. I'm really curious to see the fallout situation with these. At the time I'm filming this, I haven't tested it out yet. So, but look at that. It is so shiny. And then of course you can see the duochrome shift on the angle there. And then here it is with flash. I mean, the sparkle is undeniable, like next level. I do think the sparkle is a little bit reminiscent, just a little bit of the Patrick Ta shades. However, again, texture-wise, they feel completely different. Like I can tell that the mica used in between these two brands is totally different mica. I do think that these have a larger particle size generally. I really, really like them. I think these are for people who really want sparkle. You want more sparkle than the Urban Decay Mood Shadows, and definitely way more sparkle than the e.l.f. Cosmetics eyeshadows. I'm really glad that these don't have a larger glitter size. However, they do have, you can almost kind of see the slightly larger particle size in the pigment, especially when it's spread out. And I will insert a picture to try to capture it a little bit better. The most similar to that effect is the Glam Matrix eyeshadow for sure. These are not squishy, they're not emollient, they feel really, really silky, and these will not accentuate skin texture. If you have hooded lids, I would definitely recommend a tacky primer that will set down, as I have experienced fallout with these, especially if I don't use any sort of tacky primer because my hood is rubbing against the top of my lid. If you're not really prone to fallout, then I think that's definitely something you will have to try out for yourself if you feel like you need to use a tacky primer or not. It will also depend on how much product you're applying. The more you're applying, the more likely you're to have fallout. The less you're applying, the less fallout. Personally, they're not worth $30. I think if maybe there was that half a gram more, I would feel like the value is maybe there, or maybe if the packaging was a little bit nicer. But overall, I feel like $20 for this, 25 tops, not even 25, I think would have been plenty, and I think these would have actually sold a lot better. So I'm glad I got these on sale. I would say if you really want to try the texture, I would recommend going to a retailer and just trying these out. And if you decide that you definitely want one or two shades, wait for a sale. Do not buy these at $30 each. I just think that that is so overpriced, and I'm pretty surprised to see like that much of a markup on something that has this little product from Too Faced a little bit. I'm not like that familiar with Too Faced, but it seems to be a little out of place. I could see Pat McGrath doing this, but not Too Faced. I think they're a beautiful texture, they're a beautiful finish, and I do prefer these to the Urban Decay Mood Shadows just based on my personal preference. So let me know in the comments below if you picked any of these up. I would love to hear your thoughts on these. What do you think? Did you get it on sale? Did you pay full price? If you paid full price, do you feel like it was worth it? And if you enjoyed the video or you found it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching. I have to see you next time.